All right. So before we begin, thought we'd do a little bit of a commercial about what SEMA is, in case there might be one or two people here that don't know who we are. We were first incorporated in 1975 as CIRPA, the Canadian Independent Record Production Association. We since changed our name 3 years ago to SEMA. And we were not only the first music industry association in Canada, we were the first in the world to be formed. So we were, and are, I think, trailblazers. We represent the business end of the Independent Music Industry Association. So we represent the managers, the labels, the distributors, whatnot, the sort of non-artistic side, although we do have some artists as members. And one of the key services that we do, aside from being the voice of our industry, the advocate for our industry, we also offer global exporting services for our members, and we provide trade opportunities and networking opportunities globally in key markets around the world. We have a number of partners that help us do that. Of course, OMDC is one key partner. See another one of our partners, the AVLA, Audiovisual Licensing Agency, another key partner for us. So thank you to all of our partners. Now, the purpose of our study, or the analysis of the impact of the sound recording tax credit, it was really, and still is, an important and an effective study for us. The study is about a year old, or a year young. It was done by our good friends Nordicity. Peter, where's Peter? Shout out to Peter's in the house, thank you. Nordicity did a great job in analyzing what the sound recording tax credit does for our industry, for the economy, for the government, and the analysis that it did on how the tax credit should and could be modernized to reflect the business, better reflect the business practices of today. It really is, the study really is the gift that keeps on giving, because I've been having constant conversations over the past year, both with the federal and provincial government, multiple ministries on both levels, and it's turned out to be a fantastic resource, not only for us or for our industry, but for the key decision makers in government. So the conversations are still ongoing on this particular one. The tax credit itself was brought into force in 1999 by the Mike Harris government. It's co-administered by the OMBC and the Ontario Ministry of Finance. And the study has found that it consistently generates about $1.5 million of support annually to roughly about 100 projects each and every year. And that helps somewhere between 17 and 20 music organizations, music labels. In 2010 alone, it looked at what the effect of what happened with the tax credit that year, and it found that $1.5 million of support leveraged almost $7 million of additional investment by our labels into additional production and marketing expenditures, which brought total expenditures in that area to over $8 million for that year. So quite a leverage. Well, I got to change the page too. It's a 20% tax credit on recording, production expenses, artist royalties, musicians, sessions, graphics, scanning, programming, all that kind of stuff. It does not provide a tax credit for touring and promotion, touring and performance, the manufacturing or distributing or shipping of both digital and physical sound recording units. Now, the study found that, as I said earlier, it's a profoundly important tax credit for my industry. And my members, those who use it and utilize it, find it importance too low of a word, I think. Many of them would not be able to be in the business they are today without this tax credit. They find that it really helps them be far more competitive, both domestically and globally. And it just gives the Ontario companies an edge over companies that they're competing with around the world. If it was not in place, our members, many of our members have said that they would either delay recordings, so instead of doing 2 or 3 albums a year, they might do 1, because then they would put their resources into marketing and promoting and developing that particular sound recording. Or if this sound recording tax credit were to disappear, quite a few of our members has said they would move to other jurisdictions like Quebec. Some have said that they might not be able to survive. So it's an extremely important tax credit. Now, generally speaking, our industry generates about $500 million, generated about $500 million in revenue in 2008, or 80% of the total industry here in Ontario. About 1,900 Ontarians are employed in a wide range of jobs related to the music industry, and that our report estimates that the industry generates approximately about $2 billion in value-added revenues and employs more than 5,000 Ontarians. So it is a significant industry in of itself. About 1/4 of our Ontario music labels use this tax credit. And again, I said it's about 17 to 20 of those who could qualify use this tax credit. It stimulates, according to the report and our members, it stimulates the creation and release of sound recordings. So it provides that extra cash flow, that extra resource for our members to go a little bit further in terms of the marketing, promotion, and other things that they can do in order to generate more revenues, more sales, and more awareness of their artist and their tax recording. The study has found that that $1.5 million that go out in the tax credit each and every year generates almost $30 million of global revenues, 70% of which come back here in Ontario. And that means that the tax credit leverages a direct contribution of almost $11 million to Ontario's GDP, supports over $8 million of wages, and over 250 full-time equivalent jobs. The other thing the study found out, which is tremendously important for us when I talk to decision makers in government, that for every dollar that the OSRTC invests, the government gets back $1.27. So it is not a subsidy, it is actually an investment that generates economic activity here in Ontario. And at least 1/3 of all the projects that it supports would not proceed if this tax credit did not exist. So the report looked at a number of recommendations. And the first one is to talk to the government about explore the opportunity to increase the tax credit to something around between 30, 35 or 40%. Now all y'all here, y'all get more than we do. So what we're looking at is at least parity. And so we want to look at tweaking some of the eligibility requirements, what the tax credit is used for, looking at perhaps international marketing eligibility. Currently only half of international marketing, or marketing outside of Ontario to be specific, qualifies for the tax credit, whereas all of domestic Ontario marketing is fully eligible under the tax credit. So we want to see a bit of an expansion on the eligibility. We'd like to see some things like touring and those kinds of things qualify, the costs relating to touring qualify, because our industry has shifted a little bit from, of course, the old physical sales format to generating revenues through merchandise sales, touring, and other kinds of things. Change a couple of the rules around and processes around the tax credit to help better facilitate cash flows. And where there are some administrative processes that may be a little bit sluggish, try to streamline the process a little bit to help out in processing the whole tax credit for our members. Now, what we're doing with this report, as I mentioned off the top, we do talk to government. We have been talking to government for the last year, talking to various ministries, tourism and culture, finance, economic development and innovation, I think it's called now, the Premier's office, and the opposition parties here in Ontario. As Karen kind of alluded to, when this report first came out, it was not on the horizon, at least formally, that business support programs, particularly tax credits in Ontario, would be under a review. We all know that this year there's an exercise being undertaken led by Economic Development and Innovation about these tax credits and business subsidies, business support programs. So the key thing that we're going to be doing and have been doing is talking about the importance of tax credits for our industry and tax credit for our broader creative sector industries, how they generate economic activity and they're not a drain on the provincial coffers. So that has met with receptive ears so far, and I can tell you that this report has been received very, very well with everyone that I've talked to. From that discussion, we're trying to leverage, of course, how to modernize the tax credit. But I think our first discussion is keep it, it works, and let's see how we can improve it going down the road. So that's a conversation we're continuing to have. I've also used this report to talk to the federal government about their appetite of perhaps looking at a national sound recording tax credit. We've talked about, as I said, moving the tax credit from 20% to maybe 30%. Perhaps the federal government can fill in the other 20% here in Ontario, and so that it's a symbiotic relationship. So there are ways and means that we're trying to leverage both governments to see how they can better invest in our particular industry, and tax credit seems to be a good way to do it. And with that, I want to say thank you very much for your time. And I've run out of jokes, Karen, sorry.